I have been doing these. Well, first, happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the United States. And most people, if you're back east, if you're on the East Coast, present are probably having dinner with their families. How lovely. If you're out west, probably, if you're in California, different stages of the whole normal, we call normal Thanksgiving. I really can't say I know what normal Thanksgiving is, but that's not for me. I wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving. This has been the last 4 years, for me at least, an odd trip, not one I wanted to go on, but I have endured in belief of something grander than just myself. But if we look at, economics stating everything is for selfish best interest, I guess even for what is altruistic is a form of selfish altruistic business as well, but not in the selfishness that is believed, perceived. It is a truly a greater good. In my case, don't believe I pretty much know there's no other option. So if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out my way. A universal gaslight one person for the whole entire world. Make no mistake about it, it has quite sucked in many instances. My life's work's been stolen from me. Black Americans believe that they think they own me. Caucasian Americans have used all my ideas and then tried to cut me off from learning more for their own use. Gone through psychic battles, psychological torture, and yet still am not near the goal. Because those who don't believe in the idea of a free people, work diligently to twist the ideas and thoughts of others, turn American against American, or in other cases, to take my words and twist them for their own uses, which is counter to what I wish for, obviously. So today we're going to talk about three different, when we discuss, speak to three different groups. With the first ones being my fellow veterans, persons who, for whatever reason, chose not just the veterans, but persons of who chose public service at one time in their lives. They chose to swear themselves to an oath, to an idea that each person has the right to pursue happiness, life, and liberty in whichever way they choose, as long as that life and liberty does not negatively interfere with another person. Now, here comes the rub of what is negative interference. But in general, it means treat your neighbor as you'd wish to be treated yourself. When you have different religions and different whatevers that seem to change that for their own bearings. The Puritans, who created this first feast of European American or of Americas, even if it is a fiction that was between the first peoples and the Protestants who were here, does not matter. It is a time for national remembrance in this present day and age, both good and bad, but to remember and hope for the future as a peoples, that we can all sit down together and be thankful for all the blessings, however you view those blessings to be, are with us. We do live in the land of plenty. If you're an American in general, even with the greed of the last 30 or 40 years, the unhealthy type greed, we all could be greedy, but it's when the greed is not returned back into the system to create more greed or more fruits, then it's a dangerous role, especially the people who are being the most greedy, ironically. But for in general, compared to a lot of places in the world, there's not much want. You know, the uber wealthy tend to want to keep everyone just chasing that rabbit, kind of like the greyhounds, those greyhound tracks, greyhound, just quite never reaching it. And then those who do, or if they figured it out, they attack. As I say, I've stolen my intellectual property for the last 15 years, not longer. But we know who they are. Well, not yet. So it is you veterans or persons of public service, whether it be the Peace Corps, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, police officers, that works down at the city hall, or volunteers at the local youth or whatever part in your community, all the way up through the other military branches. You have chosen to state at one time, whatever you are now, to be something greater than yourselves. And even if you're in the private sector and you're working towards something, quote, amazing, if it's a public company, it's technically a public company. A corporation, it's technically public for the private good, regardless of what the oligarchs believe the private good being only them. The whole freedman of just the shareholders is a bunch of Bob Bullocks, so to speak, as the British would call it. We all participate. But on this day in Thanksgiving, a few week or so, I guess, since the birth of the Marines, the crayon eaters, they took that in awesome stride, as the Marines do. Our the ideal of self-governance is under threat. The politicians have been playing their little games with it. They've forgotten who they work for on both sides. And they believe they only have to work for the oligarchs. And then because the oligarchs have packed the courts, flooded the airwaves with money, worked with other would-be oligarchs across continents, thinking if we crowd them out, then we have a better chance of becoming the ones the most powerful. Irony, that's never what happens. While at the same time, they will say history says otherwise. But how long does that happen? All empires fall. It is the constant growth and renewal of the American quote empire, the American presidency, or the American leader, up, going up, having its time, then falling and returning, the bubbling that renews and strengthens America. That's why democracy, when it is working, is so strong. But greed creeps in, and oh boy, it's a lazy type of greed, mind you. The whole idea of the laws of America are to take the worst, the lower self, and turn it towards the betterment of humanity, while at the same time enriching itself. Works pretty well when the system isn't overly tainted. We know from history it's always a balance between the many and the few. That you don't have a tyranny of the majority over the minority, or a tyranny of the minority over the majority. The president, on quote mainstream media and other outlets, you've been hearing them beating the horse about fascism. Fascism is oligarchy, but it's theocratic fascism, something that Frank Zappa in the 1980s was talking about. And a lot of the situations, not all of them, a lot of the situations of the last 40 years has always been fighting back against that fascism, that theocratic fascism. Right now, we are at an inflection point concerning that. The politicians, Democrats especially, had the opportunity to stop this. Mitch McConnell, the Republican, we've been working for decades, quite honestly, it bears, to create this theocratic fascist state. I don't think he was thinking what it understood what he was being paid to create. I think he thought it was just going to be a type of like, I don't know, some false belief in the antebellum South. It was this glorious thing when it really sucked. Unless, of course, you're a cluster B, then it was awesome. We know the cluster Bs are always going to keep the cluster B psychology, or as I call it, it externalized antagonistic personalities, basically succubus in human form. Succubus or an incubus, same demon entity, the Lily Elite demon entity. From a metaphysical perspective, pushes out the child within the and keeps the child's self. It does not exist unless it's continuously doing the same pattern of extraction from others. It must destroy those who create, who are in tune with the universe. So it must feed on them. The thing is, when there's nothing left to feed on them, they start feeding on each other. So you see animals that are trapped. It is the animalistic self. Government is a balance between the animalistic and the higher self. To find the heart self. And presently, the animalistic self is winning. They created this false thing with the homosexuals and the transvestites, which personally the transvestites are from their behavior, are usually cluster B, and not all, possibly. Some maybe are just souls in different bodies. I would say a good amount. But then there are a great many who are cluster, who are the entities that feed on others. So with that, we in my battles with the former office holder McRaven and his oligarchical backers, Christian theocrats in general, because they all do the same thing. Doesn't matter if they're Mohammedan, Islamic, Jewish, Hindu. When the theocrats get a hold of everything, they always screw things up. Mostly because when the human finds somewhat enlightenment and the demon is traced out, it comes back because it cannot be by itself. It comes back and it's looking for, and it, because it gains power by externalizing its own hatreds, and so it has to destroy anything else. And that's why they have 1,001 rules, because they don't have the ability to follow that golden rule. Because if they were to follow that golden rule, do unto others as they wish would be done to them, well, they don't want to be done to them what they must do to others to exist as an entity. They don't want it to be done to them. What would they want to be done to them? They want for all of their energy, your energy, or the host target's energy to be just sent to them. But if two beings are feeding off of each other, it leads to an infinite feeding to zero, but it can't be. Matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, so one must be destroyed from their perspective. So it's always a balancing, a fight, a tussle between those that are of creative energy and those who are of taker energy. And the irony is a lot of the takers have made themselves to be somewhat viewed, at least in their minds, as creators, when they know that they are takers. And that was the brilliance of the Constitution of the United States. It balanced. It balances one. I say balanced because the Fourth Amendment's kind of gone with the Patriot Act until parts of it are rescinded. It balances that of the creation and those of the takers. It balances the idea that a person is an individual and also a many, of the whole, as a part and a whole as one, distinct and unitary. The person, Jefferson said, could have property, the commons being our collective agreements, so that each individual can till their own fertile soil of whatever property they have, so whether that be land or mind, as is below, as is above, so is within, so is without, so is without, so is within, as is below, as is above. The oneness of us all. Now, while I have my own personal beliefs in religion, for the most part Christianity, I do not believe it is my to tell others how they should reach God, who they should reach it through. Should they need an intermediary, such as a priest, because it is easier for them? That is their choice. Or if they believe that individually they can rise and reach God, that is their choice. Each is a soul. That is the greatest of American ways. However, of course, theocrats and the lower entity energies love to try to control others because they cannot accept the mirrors of others that are not themselves. So enough of the philosophical winding road. Back to my veterans. The situation, as I was saying, we are in a moment of fascism, a moment where the oligarchs have worked for 40 years, if not longer, from the founding, but most definitely since the civil rights. So 50, 70 years, 60 years. Yeah, 60 years. Because these persons and entities must externalize their negativity onto a sect, a group. And usually, since it's easier to have it visual, I place it across African Americans. Will there always be a lower class? That is always the truth, yes. There'll be those who can never fit into society. Now, the former Admiral McRaven is trying to, who has been destroying my life because I pose a threat. Somebody like me can use effectively legally and go after their own rights of happiness, whatever that may be. That's terrifying because one thing that I've noticed about bigots is they need people to be certain ways, and of anyone who does not fit into that certain way or that way that they need. So that way they appear, because everything's externalized, everything is always about looking good, not being good. They maintain control. And we know that these persons are working towards the race war they so badly want. We know by what Trump has been saying. And then we see on Newsmax, here and watch on Newsmax, as they say, oh, we used to look at the content of the character. The part they do not tell you about that, the cluster B doesn't tell you, is they look at the content of the character, and if it has character, they must destroy that content because they cannot have those have character. Because if they have character, this is as is for them, it's a zero sum game. If the external thing has character, then that means they do not, so they must destroy that thing with character. So now they, within the in group, have character as they mimic what they destroyed, and then blame it on the other. And the other then takes on the lack of character. This is what we see within the Black American community after this removal and destruction of fathers, not just the Black American community either anymore. In almost every community, they have destroyed the fathers and made this prison industrial complex, designed it to make it impossible to get out of. They use our veterans to go to war, and yes, we know when you're there, you figure out, oh, okay, this is all about money, whatever. We still have to get back home, but then they abandon us when we return. The greatest generation was the greatest generation is because they were not abandoned upon their return home. And two, they knew what they were fighting was more than just money. And to be honest with you, even if it was just about money, and our, which it is, And I actually say it's not because it's also keeping the world from quite literally falling into chaos. The world would be a lot less safe of a place if it wasn't for the United States. And we would not be as rich either. Let's be real. But we're not receiving a lot of that wealth. The greed of the few is stifling the ability for the greed of the many. And we're losing our productive capacity. And it's being stolen right in front of our eyes as they're trying to turn us against each other. Yes, there are far too many illegal immigrants. Who sends them here? The Republicans. It's part of their strategy. Say the border's closed while they're in, say the border's open when they're not. Who hires most of these illegals? It isn't other illegals. Tell them they shouldn't be here, but then we hire them. So, and then they don't hire Black Americans or the lower class Americans, the homeless and all these other people. Destroy our education system so we can't compete. Make sure everyone is in debt up to their eyeballs so that they own you. I believe it was J.P. Morgan said you control, maybe it was attested to the whole Rothschilds. Who knows? I don't care. It was a banker. It's attested to some banker. Control a country's money supply, and you can control that country. And they control our money supply. They keep us in debt. I've been attacked relentlessly by McRaven, not because, and the oligarchs, not because I was wrong, but because everything I have said is correct. They think if Trump has done everything he was supposed to do, destroy the system. Now they're putting somebody they want in because they think that once a dictator is in, they'll have control over them. They have not kept up with their history. Ask the oligarchs in Russia. Does Putin work for them, or do they work for Putin? Modi is slowly doing the same thing in India, but we'll see how that works out. He's getting a little. Everyone's getting all power hungry, killing Sikhs on other people's lands, kind of doing what the Chinese are doing. Everyone's trying to become a dictator. Everyone's being a strong man because, let's say, democracy doesn't work because the greed of the few is doing this on purpose, thinking they'll get more gains, giving us the illusion of choice. Several months ago, during the negotiations, he was given the opportunity to go, okay, which do you prefer? IRS agents, more IRS agents, funding to the IRS agents, or the SEC finally doing enforcement? Oh, they said IRS agents because if the SEC does enforcement, what's taken apart will stay apart, even though they'll actually make more money. When Standard Oil was broken up, Rockefeller's actually made way more money off the parts. They just weren't no longer, they just didn't have the vertical power. And now we're back to the same thing, anyways. But that was expected. Should these large companies be broken up? I'm gonna leave that to the people to decide. I have my own thinking, but we have not been enforcing the SEC rules, and we now know by their choice what they don't want, which means they know what they're doing. Because they know, as we already saw the next round, they already tried to immediately cut off the IRS agents before they get the 2 or 3 years of experience enough to go after these tax cheats. Nobody likes society until they need society to come save their ass. Funny how that works. So now, right now, as I said, my fellow veterans, fellow persons who took the oath to the Constitution, and not like the Oath Keepers who have been just like the Federalist Society, which should actually be called the Anti-Federalist Society, who work against the federal system, work against the Constitution. And the Oath Keepers work against the oath that they took. They think they're working towards it. And I think many of the Federalists thinks the same way. But they're not. The whole system was designed specifically from the very beginning to tear apart the federal ideal and the states and the balancing back and forth, holding checks and balances, the push and pull of each one trying to gain power. But back to where we are in the present situation. The oligarchs are right at the doorstep of destroying this great country. On January 6th, former President of the United States, as confirmed by the Congressional January 6th Committee, summoned the mob, turned them into his agents of his will, and then sent those agents illegally to step foot on the Capitol grounds without permission, therefore instigating a coup, the highest crime in the land, against the Constitution and the United States itself. A few weeks later, in January, it's 27th, 28th, before that time, Mitch McConnell, as his usual perpetrator self, as he should have brought on the House, brought impeached first after the House brought articles of impeachment. Mitch McConnell would not hold the trial. And then, when the trial came, due to threats of violence, senators of the United States cowered and did not do their duty. A duty that many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people over the terms of this country's short life have given the ultimate sacrifice. They shat on those men and women's graves. They might have just should have walked over to Arlington, sat on their headstones, and just laid a fucking dookie on top of it. Because that's basically what they did. It's not a very pleasant view. Sorry. Hope you're not eating. But we do know that at the time, years ago, it is the abundance of what we have that makes us. And that abundance is the belief the person sitting across from you has a right to every dream that they have spoken of. At least chase it, honestly. Even a little bit of hook and crook, possibly. But they have that right. And that they may even get it. And the joy that they feel getting that, traveling, climbing that hill is the joy of you, is your joy. It is because some fool created something, thought some way could be done better. We have so much. You sit at Thanksgiving and we can sit there and set out the feast that only kings of old, well, not even kings of old, could have imagined. Is because we hold itself true to be evident that all humans, man and women, or whatever, is created equal, the inalienable right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And when Mitch McConnell and the Republicans did not do their constitutional duty, the one thing that the politicians must guard against, they have stolen the ability for all humankind, not just Americans, to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Now, to cover it up, they'll try to create a race war. Then you have the Democrats getting played by those same theocrats. The January 6th Commission, Congress as a co equal branch of government. The January 6th Commission sent out subpoenas, and they did not enforce their own subpoena on a constitutional issue, mostly because, well, the oligarchs didn't want them to. They're donors. And two, they were saying, well, they might do it to us. Who gives a shit? They should have grabbed Steve Bannon by the ears, dragged his happy ass up to the jail underneath the Congress, and sat his ass there until he testified, or put him in a holding pen under the auspice of Congress. But he shouldn't be walking free. He just said, as an agent of Donald Trump, as an agent of the former president, he is above the people. That the president, the former president, is above the people. You see, by not doing these things, the so-called office of the presidency, which is being contested that the office of the presidency isn't an office, which is mostly just designed specifically to get it to the Supreme Court and see just how tainted they really are when it comes to the voting rights thing out of Colorado. former president is technically a dictator. Yes, he left, but the office is now above the people. Technically, doesn't have to listen to Congress. By precedent, anything he can, the unilateral presidency is technically in fact, and they're gearing up for that. Congress members aided and abetted the president, the former president of the United States, in an insurrection. And even if, quote, Joe Biden wins this next election, we presently live in a dictatorship and autocracy by legal precedent, unless we hold Congress to accounting and the oligarchs. This is why they've tried to shut me down over the last several months, and they've chased me across the entire country, got me kicked out of several months. So it's been a freaking year. Why, when I go to do my trades, they use their hedge funds. They show my positions in Black Americans, then not having any fucking, just absolute stupidity. Oh, we'll just use him. We'll make money off of him. Who do you think he is? First off, you shouldn't be on my computers. You shouldn't be violating my privacy. You are not entitled to my work. That is one thing, one behavior about Black Americans I will, without hesitancy, say I find absolutely disgusting. This whole, and it is the reason you stay poor as a culture. Don't like it, I do not care. We'll get to that in a bit. You can't be thankful for anybody else because somebody else says something. Then, oh, something wrong. Who the hell do they think they are? It's normal amongst any person's really poor. But it's extremely endemic with Black African Americans. And it was done on purpose to keep you that way. You figure you can steal from me, and then the Caucasians are then stealing from you. They've already stolen from me. Jay-Z stole from me $100 million. Plus the technology as far as marketing that's made him, quote, almost made him a billionaire. He's already stolen from me. And what has he done for Black Americans? Because he is a Black American. He's done nothing for you. But he has helped the oligarchs keep you in line. He'll help you start a race war, and he'll get nothing out of it because he'll be the first person they put a bullet in the head. So that way he's scattered. All the freaking gangbangers. Nah, dude. They keep you stupid for a reason. Then you think you're going to tell me. This is funny. Anyways, we'll continue on. Over the next several months, I'm going to do something, and I cannot say what I'm going to do because every time I say what I'm going to do, Graven and the oligarchs immediately start destroying everything else we're trying to work. You shouldn't be here 3 years later because the Democrats, instead of doing the right thing, all the way up to last December, betrayed the trust of the American people. Instead of holding the Republicans accountable, they were thinking, well, we can just beat this horse until we get until election, and we'll win. I don't give a shit if the Democrats or the Republicans That's not my freaking give a shit about. Mine is to the Constitution that both parties have shat on, that both parties have spat on and torn up, that do not care about. They don't care about your children. They only care about their donors. The hard work you put in yesterday and the week before, to see the smiles on their faces, to deal with the heartaches of their losses, but see the joys of them coming back from the hardship of it all, the ability to bounce back and become the rising phoenix. These are the rhythms of life. In many countries, they don't have that option. They fall, they are not going to get back up. We fall, we catch each other because we rise together. Now, as a capitalist, I know very much so we need to have ridiculously rich, wealthy people in order for us to say we are the best country, that you can accomplish anything. We also need to have a stable society at all levels, a strong middle class, which has truly been whittled. We're not as a, we don't have, and the middle class means you can go out, you can purchase, you can own the land, you can own your own property, your mind, or your, by the sweat of your brow. You're not just a peasant farmer working to provide rents for somebody else, but you are someone who's tilling the land to create rents for yourself and for your posterity. That is an amazing invention of humanity being stolen right under your noses. And the people we send to Washington to guard and to make sure there's prosperity for us all have been stealing it from all of us. And the only way is to take it back. But the voice that you are listening to, they keep constantly undercutting because they don't want you to have that option. They don't want you to have voting rights. All those people who are thinking, well, if we cut those voting rights for those people over there, well, they won't be coming after us. Well, they despise you even more. You're just useful idiots. You're actually the target. That's the irony of the psychopath, the narcissist. The person closest to them is the one they despise the most because that person has the option, the possibility of actually seeing that they are not human. And they can't have that. That's the crazy part about it. They get you fighting each other while they take everything and leave you scraps. With this part of this, I need to continue on to the next part. So, my fellow veterans, I am going to call you. But beforehand, I will have to do a few things. I'm going to need your help to do them. And you'll be seeing what happens over the next several weeks. If you don't see me on the move, then you know the oligarchs. Are. Trying to steal our country even further. and I will inform you. I'm asking for you to answer the call to meet me in DC and around the country to bring back hope to the rest of the planet that the people rule this country. To remove those senators or some of those senators and representatives who did not vote to impeach and remove the former president to uphold the Constitution of the United States. They are going to fight like the Dickens. Make no mistake about it. The way they should have fought to uphold the Constitution, actually. Because even if you're a Republican or Democrat, independent or whatever, you do not want to live in an autocracy, which I find very hilarious. All the libertarians who read Ayn Rand, they're driving us towards the things she absolutely despised. The goal is to remove the senators and Republicans and the representatives who did not vote to impeach or remove the former president, and then institute voting rights. The Democrats are going to probably try to get froggy, keep them in their place, let them play that crap. The goal is to return the people's power, the people's voice. Several months ago, put out an idea where basically a new Oklahoma land rush. Oh, the oligarchs shut that down so fast. Funny, isn't it? If you want that, a gold rush, that land rush, you need to be able to vote. The politicians need to know who is in charge. I will let you know further, but it will be soon, several months. It'll make more sense why several months instead of next month. And they will be working against me every step of the way. You notice every time I do something, then they try to call me a homosexual. As you know, I'm extremely heterosexual. I do like my women in particular. I know what I like and I know what I want. And I want what I want and I want what I like. And if a chick doesn't like it, I don't give two fucks. This is what they do. And they did exactly what they said I said they would do. Because bigots play things as a zero sum game. If I'm a man, that means they're not. Shows that they don't have self. Now, the next thing is the royal family. Yeah. Well, this Prince Andrew, Princess Royal Anne, Prince Harry, Prince William, Duke of Wales, and and families. I know Prince William thinks he's being intransigent. Well, that's expected. He's an introvert. I'm an introvert. I expect nothing less. But he's being played, and he's being played to his death, and he does not even realize it. Princess Anne and Prince Andrew, your mother gave me extraordinary powers, extraordinary responsibility, not just for my country, as I'm an American. I'm only known being an American. My baby picture that McRaven stolen shows me coming here only actually several months old. I'm American through and through, and I've been a citizen since that time. But I'm technically also a citizen of the Commonwealth. And unbeknownst to me, it was also in some form an aristocrat, lineage and blood. Your mother knows, or knew, or however you wish to look at it, because I say knows, I don't want to get into metaphysics about that, but understood what's at stake. She also knew your brother, President King Charles, was under the sway of the same people who are trying to destroy him. He thinks he's in control of them. He is not. They know it. She is Camilla, but they control her and they control him. They also know that I'm correct. He is unfit to be king, and he committed treason by working with McRaven and the oligarchs to have his mother assassinated because he knew, they knew, that psychic attack would do that. It was designed to do that. McRaven is very practiced at this. They know. They're they're gulping right now. The terror is ripping through their spines. So they'll start attacking almost immediately. But I know Prince Andrew and Princess Anne, you already are with me. Now Charles is kind of surprised that Prince Andrew is with me in understanding. So is Prince William at this present time. He knew that, yeah, Camilla was being a little hard on Kate. No, dude, she wasn't being a little hard. She's been attacking both Kate and your aunt relentlessly, and it will get worse. She doesn't attack you because you don't. Well, as an introvert, let's be real, we don't see as much as you think you see. Unless you've gone through the conjunction of the opposites, which you will one day, you don't see what you think you see. And I say that as a fellow introvert, the rarest type of introvert. I remember the first days I was going through I was studying philosophy and a little bit too loud, a little bit too loud, just seeing and to hear what people meant, truly meant, even beyond what I thought I knew. And to see the light and to see and to feel, oh yeah. I remember one time during that time I was working at a restaurant, parsley, and I was taking the parsley out of my hand and I was dropping it down onto the table, and I could literally see each individual flake. Must have been hundreds of them. Actually, I know it was 100 of them. I was counting. Well over 100 of them. Just I could see each individual one exactly at the exact same time. That's something you cannot explain unless you've gone through it yourself. Your grandmother knew I'm not Charlotte. I don't try to say anything beyond what I can do or can't do. She gave me this responsibility mostly because I really don't want it, and I'd rather just go snowboarding and be left the hell alone. I traded in. I built my systems not because I wanted a gajillion dollars. Oh, I just needed enough money to go buy a condo. It's going to cost me a couple million. What do? I'm an American. I figure out how to make it happen. And these assholes stole my shit. Pardon me. Speak colloquial American. I'm still annoyed. Go live my American dream. It just happened to be that I derived a system that's worth billions. And in order to protect my sister, what I did not knowing at the time, my brother, an annoyance to in a sense to my sister because my mother, because I felt that I got them into the problem. Because I know from my work previous in the military what happens when you go against the cartels. Because the cartels are nothing more than the Mexican government. For what your dad is doing, is thinking, well, we'll just steal his stuff and I'll control these people and we'll be all good. Da 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 da. No, that's not what's going to happen. Right now, they've gotten the mechanics. You know, they think they're going to be gaining power. No, they're not. They just screwed up again. And now those ones who are outside of the United States are removing their charter as well. I don't need anyone's permission. They're trying to use the black Americans will say, well, you need us. No, you don't get it. Great Britain is an empire, is a monarchy, and the monarchy gave me power with a mandate. You don't get a say in this. Nobody gets a say. And they say, well, we don't have to carry out what you ask of us. Then you've all committed treason. And that is true in a sense. but I'll get to that in a second. Ah, somebody just realized I knew, and they're now terrified as well. President Biden realizes that last week when he was talking about Xi being a dictator. That's what he was actually thinking about when it really actually hit him, what it meant. I am Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth's sovereign champion. I am the sovereign's sovereign champion. You have no idea how much that terrifies me. You think you're terrified. At least you're prepared for it. To lead, to be part, to be the head of state, which Charles was. And most of you by growth. I was just being American, doing my thing. And it just now hits you, huh, Prince William? Even if you're asleep at this moment, which I don't think so. I'm either feeling you or feeling the rest of America. One of the two, or both. My goal is to reestablish the Magna Carta. Presently, the King of England is an absolute monarch. He is controlled by the former Queen, because she is no longer to be Queen, Camilla, unless she can convince Parliament to put her back on. She didn't even have the good sense to try to show some humility during the coronation. And then when they were in Jordan, everything said, "Oh, the time of the absolute monarch is again." I don't think so. For if you become a monarch, an absolute monarch, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II made it absolutely clear on her 50th anniversary, on her Diamond Jubilee, the reason that she is doing this, and that is to ensure Prince George passes on the crown to his progeny. In order to save the crown, I must destroy the crown. Prince William, I have the backing of the military. They have already, Camilla already has tried to get the general populace to, start hating Americans now, to the people of the Commonwealth, the United Kingdom, and Great Britain. If I do not do this, you will become all the freedoms you have. At first, will seem like they are there, but soon over time, they will be squeezed, and only violence gets rid of an absolute monarch or dictator. It is the Magna Carta that brings peace, and is the responsibility of the Magna Carta and the rule of law that brought prosperity to the British Empire, which then created America. Which leads to the next thing. Prince Harry, during your wedding, your father gave away the bride. That was a grievous, uh, especially now we know Camilla with King Charles attacked Her Grace Lady Markle's father, so that way he did not show up at the wedding. Your wedding is a state event. Your father was essentially saying and indicating to the nobles and the oligarchs and the top and the old money clans, he controls the United States of America. As your wife is an American citizen, legally allowed to vote, she is a sovereign. And there will be those, well, it's just the black Americans. No, no, no. All Americans. And I will tell you this, there is not a single American I don't know. I would never think that it was like, what? That old boy thinks he what? Yeah, old boy thinks he's going to control the United States. It is highly suggested that on your next anniversary, you and Her Grace renew your vows. If it is in the United States, it needs to be at the National Cathedral, and then we'll see which nobles show up. And if it's in London, someplace at your choice. But the main thing that matters, and the sooner you do this, the better. Meghan Markle's father must give her away. There's something to that, both from a psychology perspective, but in this case, because the wedding is a state wedding, it is America giving away his daughter to the protection of the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and the Commonwealth of Nations, not the domination that your father tried to state. Besides, after the tribulations of the last several years, it might be kind of cool. I don't know. You can ask those who've renewed their vows every so often to ask them what they think. I cannot give the emotional statement on that, but I have to give it on the political. Which leads to the next thing. Prince William, Prince Andrew, Princess Anne, and of course Prince Charles. I don't care what Prince Charles thinks. At this present time, we can have that conversation. Maybe we might find some common ground later, but at this present time, I can care less. But mainly Prince Andrew and Princess Anne. As I was preparing to write a letter today, which I'll complete later after this, I realized the meaning of the Duke of Edinburgh and the weight of it, meaning to you. It was your father's title, and it was her, your mother, the longest serving British monarch, way of saying, I must protect you with my entire lives, the entire realm, and the amount of trust she was leaving to me. Now, I can definitely understand where you would say, well, it's just a crazy old lady, but you know darn well her faculties were complete intact. There was no weakness in her mind at all. And by accepting contract, both ends, that is part of it. Now, I don't know if there's anything else, probably, but that part is enough to be driving most people crazy. The other thing is the, the nobles were trying to create the whole idea that I am not old money. The fact is, I am old money, old aristocracy. Yes, both African, slave, this, that. My lines are the entire globe. It is the history of Earth, depending on what you believe in, since the flood. Why is it important that I am old money? It is the difference between being in the back row at St. Abbey's and in the first or second row, which is where I am supposed to be, to the right of the family, the bulwark against all idiots. That is why Pope Francis stated that a Freemason can no longer receive Holy Communion. Well, one of the reasons. The other one's just nobody else's business besides what we have our conversation about. At that time, I wish to bring back the Knights Templars and let those free men choose. If they wish for an intermediary, let it be so. And those others who wish to just stay as free men, be so as well, as long as their works are within the works of Christ. But that's a conversation for myself and His holiness. But either way, I must knock and the door must be opened at the Grand Lodge, as I must bring together all the lodges, the Prince Hall, the mechanics. With that, I am going to act like a complete idiot for the next year. Yeah, because it's the last time I get to be an American. I'm going to enjoy it. Your mother did that for her prince, gave him time. I know all nobles will try to use that time to destroy me. Nothing new. Try to say I'm supposed to be this or that pedestal that they can tear down. Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, their goal is to isolate Prince William from his brother. And through that isolation, they will control him. Through that control, they'll destroy the crown. And through that destruction of the crown, if they don't destroy the United States in this round, they'll destroy it then. It's that dialectical thing of the thinking. Two poles gives us our heart. My oath is to the Constitution of the United States of America to defend her against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I told her I would do this mostly as being an American because I only know how to be an American. I will gather together the persons, and the way the system is set out it is your voice. Think about 100 things, good and evil. It's amazing what you can do. Good or evil, or using evil to do good, you can do within this world. With that, this gaslight needs to end. I need a driver sent to my location. I need every my orders followed. Because every day you do not is every day the fascists grow stronger. Lord commanders and those nobles who are still loyal to the crown, if Prince William cannot give the order within one day, you are to remove King Charles III from the throne of England for high treason. He does not believe his son will have the guts to allow me to do my work and keep him on the throne, because he sits on the throne at my leisure, at my pleasure. And it is only so that Prince William can raise his son to 27 years of age. The letter will be written in full by the tomorrow morning with what I needed to have done and be placed as an open letter. Prince William, I am sincerely sorry. I hope that you understand. I know you will not. But in order to save the crown and to save my precious constitution, you keep dilly dallying and she keeps destroying you. And as an introvert, I totally understand you're thinking 1,000 different ways and twisting and turning, and you just can't believe he would never. I know. It's the same thing I thought about with my mom. Nothing hurts worse than the people you think you're supposed to be protecting are the ones who are throwing you under the bus. That's why she gave me the authority to do what I must. The only way Magna Carta can be placed back in oath is King Charles, or you, preferably King Charles, so that way you can raise your son, confers the title of Duke of Edinburgh upon me, in official. After which, I have a feeling Congress will, at least I think, hopefully, General Milley did set up the Knight of the Republic. Then I will go and become that for one complete the setup of it if necessary, if it is asked of me. But I cannot do so before then. The kids believe I'm that, but I will not do so because until I have been granted and have accepted the title that was bestowed upon me by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. But before then, I have a constitution to save, and hopefully a third world war to stop or mitigate. And even if war starts, especially if war starts, you will, you must, in order to save the realms, complete her work. Her Majesty's work. Well, don't be dumb, these things so American. And finally, off to Ukraine. Speaking of which, this will hopefully be quick. Gamers, you are up again. This one has taken so long because I've been able to give my regular updates. The Ukrainians have created these drone boats that these are two things. The Navy needs, the United States Navy needs drones, off-the-shelf drones that can be autonomous. And we need to do it in three types of batches. What can you create in 30 days? What can you create in 90 days? And what can you create in 180 days? That means from thought to in the water working. Hard challenge, I know, but if you can get it to the Navy, there's a lot of money in it. Now, with Ukraine, as far as their boats, one of the things that we need done is on their drone boats, we need to use the drone boats as a relay. And on those, you need to be able to launch switchblades or FPV drones. Shouldn't be that difficult. Should use the boats themselves as a relay. I do not know what the time lag on that will be, but you're going to have to work that time lag out. So you might have to do waypoint adjustments as opposed to just straight up FPV or whatever. But this way, you can, instead of just going straight across the Dnipro, you can run those boats off uh, and continuously hammer the supply lines with the loitering munitions, using the switchblades to hammer deep behind the lines into Crimea, stopping the flow of ammunition coming from Crimea into the places off of Dnipro. Secondary thing, right now we're in general mud. We're prepping for fighting season, maybe a winter offensive either by the Russians with a holding position. You know, the oligarchs were attacking me so that way they can make money off of Ukrainian blood, and I'm upset because instead of crushing the Russians, which we were very much on the route to do. But not going to bellow over spoiled milk. You know you have the 4 points. Once again, the generals need cover. We need ideas. You've done great as far as pushing the Russian Navy back. The grains are going out. We need to make sure we have complete control over the Black Sea. Also, as I said, make sure by using FPV drones, also switchblades, making sure there's a route that comes out of Crimea going towards the Dnipro where they made that bridgehead. Make sure no supplies reach that area. Starve them out. Russia will increase its attackers around Avdiivka and possibly do some stuff, more probing stuff in the north to try to pull resources away. That's why it's going to be, you're going to need to use the drone boats as almost like aircraft carriers. They can launch up there, launch their payloads, and then come back and then do patrols of any Russian ships. And this also gives them, if they have some FPV or switchblade drones, they can take out any helicopters or anything if the Russians start bringing boats out into the open ocean, open water, combined with their other drones. As far as with the Navy, what you want to do is be able to create swarms, just like when you're doing games, you'll have like different units and they autonomously go towards an attack. You need to create that type of software, but also these types of systems to counter the threat. If we have to go to war with China, we can drop these drones in. I'd much rather us be able to just compete with technology, but right now, as G says, he just wants to compete. Well, I take him at his word. Hold trust but verify. So create these drone swarms. Build out. You need a new structure, uh, strategies, and tactics. So that way, it overwhelms the Russian. The Russians have been able to attack mostly because the gamers have been silent because they've been silencing me. Also, closer to home, we have a situation with Argentina. You know, there's oil. There is a problem. We don't. Let's be real. We don't want Argentina to take that oil off of the coast and overrun that small country. So what do we do down there? Get some ideas going. How do we? Because that if we don't, then we'll get more migrants heading north before war in South America starts up. How do we stop it? And if it starts, how do we finish it quickly? And then also, what diplomatic things can we do? As far as Africa and the Caribbean and all, well, that's as far as investment, well, that's dependent upon certain things I'll take care of later. The war in Sudan seems to be doing what it does. those are the Muslim faith, explain to us, why do you guys always keep fighting? God, Islam's the religion of peace. Situation in Israel. Fortunately, we finally do have a slight ceasefire, well, pause in operations. Will Hamas give away the hostages to get, or are they trying to just keep getting more hostages and try to squeeze as much out of Israel as possible until Israel finally says enough? I think it's the latter because that's the way that Muhammad did after he went to Medina. So we'll see what happens. Hamas has stated that they want Jerusalem as the capital, and yeah, I don't see that one happening. So we'll see what's going on with that. Hopefully, everything calms down soon. Pretty much expected about 20 to 30,000 Palestinian casualties. You might see, well, that's a lot. Yeah, it's disproportionate. Probably created more hate. But Iran is getting froggy. Saudis are just going to sit back and see what happens. Nobody wants that second. Well, America wants that second canal, but the Arabs don't want that second canal. Egypt sure as hell doesn't want the second Suez type canal through Israel. It's kind of why they left the Gaza Strip there and stuffed the Palestinians in there. And I'm pretty darn sure that Israel's not going to go for the two-state solution, especially since there's so many of the Hasidic Jews who do not fight in the military, i.e., the religious Jews, and even the secular Jews. I can't see saying, "Yeah, give up Jerusalem." Why can't the Muslims learn to live with other people? But what Israel's doing is, I understand their anger. They need to be able to rein that in. They need to find a way. And Iran's not going to let it be easy. Neither are the Saudis and the Muslims in general. I need to. So, anyways, this has been a long chat. I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Slava Ukraine. May the flag forever wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. God bless you all. God bless America.